Tēnā koutou katoa, ngā mihi o te tauhou Māori. New Year greetings to you in the Māori language, the language of our Indigenous people of Aotearoa, New Zealand. This time of year in Aotearoa, the star cluster we know as Matariki, also known as Pleiades, is seen on the horizon in the pre-dawn sky. This signals the Māori New Year, which is a time of reflection, connection, and aspiration. So very fitting, I think, for what we're about in this conference. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Look, I want to share firstly a little bit of what we're about as New Zealand Police. We are one national police agency covering the whole country, which is divided into 12 districts and a number of service centres. We have approximately 14,000 staff, over 10,000 of which are constabulary. We are in a country with a very diverse population, more than 213 ethnic communities who speak over 160 languages. We're deliberately growing the diversity of our workforce, a very deliberate strategy on our part in order to be able to reflect the community that we serve. We are well on our way to this, and across many aspects of our workforce, we are already reflecting community diversity. Why is this important? Well, we believe it's fundamentally important to have the trust and confidence of the communities that we serve. And by having demographics that match that community, we believe we will be best placed to provide the service that our community needs. We have recently hit the milestone of 25% women, which doesn't sound like much, but the good news is we are seeing an exponential sort of spike up in the trend around that diversity, and anticipate that by 2030 we could be as high as 40% women in New Zealand Police. So an exciting time for us as we move forward in that respect. So why is this important? Well, in the words of Sir Robert Peel, the police are the public and the public are the police. We know that the more New Zealand Police reflects and represents the public we serve, the more successful we can be at building partnerships to prevent crime and harm. Public confidence sits at the core of this. We know we'll struggle to be effective without it. I'm going to share with you now a slide of a product that we call Our Business. This is a strategy on a page, if you like, that we share with our staff to be able to speak to them about what it is that's important to us. So a simple document, but actually very powerful in our internal conversations. Firstly, our vision, to be the safest country. This isn't a competitive thing. We actually use this to contrast to where we are today with where we could be in the future. And when we do this, we recognise that there are many areas inside of New Zealand where we have structural problems that prevent us from achieving our optimal level of safety. Our mission, to prevent crime and harm through exceptional policing. This is a really important strategic fulcrum for us, if I can describe it that way. In the past, our mission may have described a bit more of what we did rather than the purpose for which we are present. By identifying very clearly the prevention of crime and harm, you actually can test every decision that you make inside the organisation. If I go left, if I go right, what is the outcome most likely to prevent crime and harm? And so what we see through this is the opportunity both at individual case level for officers dealing with a person in front of them, what action should I take? And then right up to the strategic level, where should we invest our time, effort and resources in order to get the outcome that we aspire to. So I'll come back to that a little bit more. The other thing here, just calling out our goals, our priorities, I'm not going to go into this in great detail, but to emphasise the power of something that clearly lays out what it is that you're about. Thinking about our mission, if our focus is on prevention, so moving away from a traditional formulaic conception of law enforcement to a focus on prevention, the key question becomes what works. Because no longer can we describe ourselves by the activities that we do, which is a simple kind of, I'm here to do these activities, therefore I will go and do them, to I'm here for this outcome. Suddenly I need to know what it is that makes the difference. Easy to say, but if we think about the myriad different contexts in which police operates and the kinds of problems that we grapple with, achieving that holy grail of fully understanding what works may be about as difficult as finding the actual holy grail. But evidence-based policing clearly is at the centre of this journey, because we now are really expecting our people, be they tactical decision makers or strategic decision makers, to exercise much judgment about the actions they're going to take. And we are increasingly supported through our Evidence-Based Policing Centre in being able to do this. If we think about that what's been achieved in the medical world in terms of evidence to inform decision making, it's very encouraging what can be achieved, but it also shows, I think, just how far we have to go in evidence-based policing. Arguably, the problems that we're trying to deal with inside of policing are more complicated than the problems that a physician tries to solve with someone who's unwell. And so there is a long way to go. Well, how are we achieving this, and how do we believe we'll achieve it? Our Evidence-Based Policing Centre is developing for us a trusted, robust evidence base about what works in policing. Initiated in 2017, it is now contributing right across our business and helping us to deliver on those goals. Obviously, EBPC has an important role in ensuring that proven approaches and tactics guide and inform our decision makers. We'll share a few examples further through this presentation about EBPC helping to identify opportunities to prevent harm before it happens. If we think about our mission, I just want to share some of our context and challenges in New Zealand and why this matters. The mission to prevent crime and harm is playing out in a complex social and criminal context. Like all places, I think, internationally, crime's becoming more sophisticated, more internationally connected. The internet providing a platform for criminals to operate in different ways. Additionally, the deportation of criminals into New Zealand has created a whole lot of new connections to international organised crime networks. In addition, our base sort of what I would describe as structural problems are a real challenge. We have significant inequities in parts of our community, poverty, drug and alcohol addictions, mental health challenges really driving demand for our services. In addition, we see Māori and Pacifica people particularly overrepresented in the criminal justice system, both as victims and offenders. And they are disadvantaged in many ways with greater disparities across health, housing, etc. So this context and the outcome that we aspire to means we have to be very flexible and agile, and we are expecting new capability of our officers. One of the challenges, obviously, with EBP is making sure that the knowledge is skillfully applied, which needs to happen at many levels. As I've said, it can range from an individual officer dealing with a case, understanding the person in front of them and trying to select a response that's appropriate, through to the commander dealing with whole of community level problems. And we need to be able to deliver EBP knowledge and insight in ways that support that full spectrum of decision making. One of the things very much on our mind in terms of that has been building the curiosity amongst commanders and the front line about what it is that works. When I joined the police, it was enough to know this is what we do, this is the process we follow. And so you could just build on the practice of the past, whereas arguably now we're asking people to come to policing ready to think about what's in front of them and decide based on a mix of evidence-based knowledge and professional judgment, which is a much bigger expectation. There are various things that we're doing to support with this. We have a piece of work called the Resolutions Framework, which is helping to re-engineer our decision-making processes across the front line. And it's really about looking at the end-to-end process from scene attendance to resolution and creating key points in there where maybe a specialist knowledge, a centralised capability could provide advice into a situation and say, for what you've got in front of you, we recommend this or that. Lots of water to go under the bridge there, but that's our aspiration. We're also very mindful of the convergence between evidence-based policing and intelligence. We have them located under the same executive structure within police, and clearly they need to be hand in glove. you need both insight about the environment and insight about what works to treat it to equip decision makers to be able to do what they need to do. There's a key opportunity inside of evidence-based policing to engage the public. What we are seeing in New Zealand, and I don't think this is unique, is increasing polarisation around law and order and what it is that works to get a result. And this in New Zealand is characterised as either hard on crime or soft on crime. I don't find that very helpful. I would much rather speak about what works to prevent crime and harm. And that might look hard or it might look soft in any given context, but actually it's just about being smart, it's smart policing. And so to engage the public domain in that, we actually need to be able to demonstrate evidence of what works in that public domain. So evidence-based policing really can support us, I think, to get more mature policy responses and a more mature public conversation about what it is that works in policing so that we don't get pushed down paths that are counterproductive. Just coming now to, I suppose, the establishment of the EBPC and what it does for us in New Zealand Police. Firstly, just to acknowledge it was a courageous decision by the previous Commissioner and Executive. Our Deputy Chief Executive, Insights and Deployment, Mark Evans, was at the forefront of that, and I acknowledge in the audience today Assistant Commissioner Bruce O'Brien and Director Simon Williams, who are at the more hands-on end, if you like, of that evidence-based policing practice. The capability has really evolved since 2017, and we have got to a point now, I think, where EBP is really hitting its straps inside of New Zealand Police. Whether it's evaluating the results of things that we're trialling or providing insights to shape tactics, we've made a lot of progress. It was established as a joint partnership between New Zealand Police, University of Waikato, Institute of Environmental Science and Research, and Vodafone New Zealand. These partners are obviously a really diverse bunch of organisations, and it has meant that we've been able to bring a diversity of approaches and resources to the problems that we face. Police brought together a range of key functions that had previously been scattered across the organisation into a single coherent evidence-based policing centre. The approach is based on a healthy tension between strategic intent, evidence and experience, and really trying to deepen that understanding of how to prevent community harm. Obviously, we gather as an organisation a lot of data, as I'm sure most police services do, and by sharing this with expert researchers with the right data capability, we can generate insights that we've never been able to have before about policing impact. This works through a network of leads and champions in our police districts, 12 of them, and that's about making sure that there's a two-way flow of information, of opportunity, of insight between our districts and the EBPC. So those network leads are a really crucial part of making sure that what we do in that place is actually utilised and that we're focused on the right problems. Some of our best ideas for preventing crime and harm actually emerge from our front line. We have really encouraged a level of innovation inside of New Zealand Police over a number of years. And so what we get is police staff responding with their experience to local problems, and the EBPC is able to bring an evidence base such as there is one, but also the ability to evaluate impact and demonstrate whether or not those approaches are leading to better, smarter, faster ways of working. So evaluation is key, and it's really common now to hear staff, when they want to do something, start to talk about evaluation and how we're going to know whether it works, which is a step change for us. In terms of the SARA model, we've been pretty big right up to the response part. Actually, we probably jumped there, and then the after analysis has been weak, and I see that rebalancing really nicely through the Evidence-Based Policing Centre. We've had a range of probably strategic and tactical examples of things we've done. A couple of the more tactical end ones, a revised bail notice. So we have a behavioural science team here in New Zealand, and working with that team to generate a revision in the design of a bail notice issued to people being released on bail. running alongside that a small-scale randomised control trial in one of our districts, we're able to demonstrate that the revised notice made a difference to the attendance of people at court. Quite a simple thing, but actually saving a huge amount of work after the fact when we have to go and find people who failed to attend. So that's now going into a national step wedge RCT due to complete in December 2022 after our rollout nationally. Lumi Mobile Drug Scan, this is a real-time drug analysis system working between the Evidence-Based Policing Centre and our Institute of Environmental Science and Research. This is really about looking for instantaneous analysis of drugs in the field so that staff can take decisions about whether to arrest, whether to send away for further testing. This bit of kit examines using infrared crystals or powder connected through to a mobile phone, which all our officers have, and an app, which then gives them a quick result on the identification of the substance. At the moment, it's our sort of three most prominent drugs in New Zealand, and will extend across to other drug types as the technology develops. So it responded to a frontline need, frontline staff saying that they were hamstrung because they had to wait weeks for drug results, and that innovation gave them a result. We have a careful governance structure inside the EvidenceBased. Obviously, lots of opportunities that come forward. We need to be able to prioritise our research well. We have a group that does that, and we have an overall governance group, which is about the relationship between all of the partners. And so that enables us to make sure that the resources we're applying to these kinds of opportunities are well directed. At the strategic level, there are some bigger challenges that the EvidenceBased is assisting us with. A key program of work is called Understanding Policing Delivery. And this is really responding to the overrepresentation of Māori and Pacifica people in the criminal justice system. We've seen internationally a huge amount of debate about bias in policing, and obviously triggered by some key events. This is a huge challenge, I believe, for policing, and it's characterised by people talking past each other, or often actually shouting past each other. On the one side, allegations of police racism; on the other side, police saying, well, we just deal with what's in front of us. And so we never resolve the difference of perspective. Through our Understanding Policing Delivery program, which is supported by the EvidenceBased, we've assembled an independent panel of people who are really credible in this field in terms of looking at bias in policing. And we are looking at three key questions which we think we can bring an independent and objective lens to. So who we stop and speak to, who we charge, and who we use force against. And by stripping back, and getting to the data, I guess we're taking out the noise. What is police's contribution to uneven outcomes for Māori or Pacifica people as compared to failings that may have occurred further upstream, be it mental health, family harm related issues, gang related issues. And so not only will this give us insight based from a research lens, it will also enable us to try things along the way, testing interventions that look like opportunities to improve the fairness and equity of policing services. It's a very exciting piece of work, and I believe fairly unique for the way we have partnered the community voice on these issues with operational staff in the context of a research exercise. Research into methamphetamine, and in particular trying to understand holistically the impact of methamphetamine on our communities. I won't steal Bruce and Simon's thunder on this because they will talk in more detail during tomorrow's panel session, but methamphetamine is having a huge impact in New Zealand communities, and the report that we have produced has been in partnership with a large number of partners, trying to create, I suppose, insights, but also generate a conversation about what needs to be done, most often further upstream from police, to address the problem that is impacting us so significantly. Armed response teams and our tactical response model. In 2019, the Police Executive approved the deployment of armed response teams across 3 districts in New Zealand. This is against a backdrop of a police service that is not routinely armed. So perhaps a similar model to that used in the UK. The trial generated a huge amount of public and political commentary. And through the EVPC, we were able to evaluate the trial in a way that showed us this model simply wasn't going to land in the eyes of the community because the way it had been established. It used a approach that brought in community voice, that brought in operational voice, and it allowed us to refine our model to what is now known as the tactical response model, something that we were able to communicate much more effectively with the community. And now that is being evaluated through a mixed methods evaluation that will assist us to understand the impact of the tactical response model and keep fine-tuning it. So in that context, we see, an issue that had a really strong public lens on it, and our ability to represent to the community what's happened through the course of a trial, to be able to secure buy-in and the legitimacy of the actions that police is proposing. And the EBPC and this evidence-based practice is just so helpful for, I suppose, bringing a level of objectivity to things that police is trying to position in the community. Obviously, it's not all plain sailing, and there are areas where we continue to work hard. One of the big challenges is making sure that the community voice is represented into the Evidence-Based Policing Centre. The community has a strong view on policing, and it's just so important that we embed things like Māori research principles into the way the EVPC operates, so that the work we're doing is seen as legitimate across the different sections of our community. Also getting practice fully embedded in the organisation. As you understand from where I started, we have a big aspiration for our people to be able to respond to an evidence base in all of their decision making. That requires a huge body of knowledge that simply doesn't exist yet, but we're excited to be contributing to it. And working that through with our people. Access to the right capability, employment market's very tight in New Zealand, as I suspect it is everywhere at the moment. Getting the right data capability, the right research capability, at the same time as working with legacy systems that need to be re-engineered to improve the architecture and our ability to extract meaningful insights from them. So look, I'm conscious of time and I'm going to wrap up here, but just really to say the EBPC has an essential role within New Zealand Police. It continues to support our concept of policing by consent, which ultimately amounts to the quality of the trust and confidence and the relationship we have with the community. Using an evidence base is so fundamental, I think, in that conversation with the public, and will help us ultimately to secure trust and confidence and achieve our business. We see a future where we very deliberately test new innovations and continue to have our practice informed by a really strong understanding of what works, which will allow us to prevent crime and harm in our communities in the way that we intend. As a decision maker wanting to make the best decisions, the value of evidence-based policing is immense, and we're really excited about the future. I'm going to close with a Māori proverb or whakatauki, which goes like this: Mā te whakaatu ka mōhio, mā te mōhio ka marama, mā te marama ka mātou, mā te mātou ka ora. By discussion comes understanding, by understanding comes learning, by learning comes wisdom. By wisdom comes well-being. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
David Cowan, the president of the Australian-New Zealand Society for Evidence-Based Policing, has a question.
I think a lot of states are looking to New Zealand and the commitment they have made in evidence-based policing. I suppose my hope is that the work of New Zealand Police in structurally setting up an evidence-based policing centre and the body of work that underpins that is that it will influence other states across Australia. And I know there is growing interest across Australia in the work of the Evidence-Based Policing Centre. I suppose my question to you is a bit self-centred, but do you see opportunities for New Zealand to influence the states in Australia in moving towards a similar model.
Or indeed England and Wales, and Scotland and Northern Ireland. So, Commissioner Coster, can you give us an answer to that question?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, look, we're really pleased to support others where we can. I think it does take a bit of courage from the executive to be able to go ahead and take the decision to establish a capability like this. And one of the things that I would note is that New Zealand Police was ready for this, not just in terms of desiring an evidence base, but in terms of having thought quite carefully about the outcomes that we want to achieve, and particularly in reference to prevention. If you don't have that real clarity about your purpose to prevent crime and harm, then the evidence basis can fall somewhat on deaf ears. If policing practice is defined by the activities we've always done, then evidence-based policing is shifted. So I think that's a key to be able to have the impact, through an evidence-based policing centre. But we're certainly really happy to share that practice for those who are interested, and we're proud of what we've done, but we also don't believe we've got all the answers. So the more we can work together across jurisdictions, the stronger we'll be, I believe.